Hilchos Shabbos Perek Tish'a Asar. The laws of Shabbos, chapter 19. We're dealing with carrying, specifically as it relates to human clothing. Tomorrow we're going to deal with animal dresses and clothing. Today we're dealing with human clothing, which articles a person can and cannot go out with on Shabbos because it's considered to be carrying. It says that Rambam Halacha Aleph Kol Klei HaMilchama En Yotzin Bahen B'Shabbat. All articles used for war, types of weapons, you cannot go out carrying them on Shabbos. Of course, we're talking about regular time. Chapter 2, we saw if there's a war, you go out whatever it takes to save Jewish lives. But typically, you can't walk out with these weapons. V'im yatsa, if you did go out carrying this stuff, im hayu kelim shehin derech malbush, if they were articles that are worn as clothing, kigon shiryon, like the coat of mail over there on the right. They used to go out with these kind of coats of armor that were made up of a bunch of loose, like kind of round things. So it was a little bit pliable and flexible, but very tough, so arrows couldn't penetrate it. The kova, or it's a helmet, or magafayim shadar aglayim, or boots on the feet. Hareze patur, you're exempt, because you wore it, so it's not considered carrying when you wear it. But if you went out wearing some things that are not usually worn, they're usually held, kigon, for example, he gives 5 examples, going from right to left. Romach, a spear. The sayif, or a sword. The keshet, or a bow. The Allah, a round shield. Utris, a triangular shield. Hareze chayav, then you're liable, because you literally carried something onto the street that you shouldn't have carried. Halacha bet, en yotzin besandal mesumar shesimro lechazko. You cannot go out with a sandal that's studded with nails to strengthen it. And the Rambam gives, the commentaries give 2 examples of what this looks like. Either a bunch of nails are screwed into the bottom of the sandal, because it gives a better grip, better traction on the ground, or simply the leather, as it's attached to the sandal, is also done with nails. Either of those are called a sandal mesumar. Even on holidays, the truth is, when you're allowed to carry, the sages made a decree, you shouldn't go out to the public domain with these sandals. Why? The Talmud says a very tragic story, where there were people that had these sandals studded with nails, and they were in a dark place, they couldn't see, they ended up stepping on each other and hurting each other. So it was a danger, so they stopped using these things. If you have a belt that has like little pieces of gold or silver stuck into them, like kings do, you're allowed to wear that on Shabbos because it's decorative. Whatever is decorative is permitted to be worn on the Shabbos. Of course, it cannot be loose. The belt can't hang loosely. Because it might fall while you're in the public domain, and you're going to carry it. Many of the things we're going to see in this chapter are enacted as worries that you shouldn't come to carry in the public domain. So if anything is hanging loosely on yourself, you cannot go out with it on Shabbos, lest you carry it in the public domain. Halacha Gimel, we're talking about rings now. In rings, there's 2 types. On the left, you have a tabat with a signet, with a seal, and on the right, you have a plain ring. It's an unmarked ring. It says that Rambam tabat sheyesh alei chotam, a signet ring, a ring that has a seal, mitachshitei ha'ishi, ve'ena mitachshitei ha'isha. Legally is considered to be jewelry for a man, not jewelry for a woman. V'she'en alei chotam, an unmarked ring, it has no signet, mitachshitei isha, ve'ena mitachshitei ha'ish. It's from women's jewelry, not from men's. Lefichach, therefore, isha sheyatzat b'tabat sheyesh alei chotam. Were a woman to carry on the Shabbos a ring that has a signet, or conversely, if a man would go out with a ring that has no marking, chayavin, they would be liable because they're wearing something which isn't considered to be jewelry for them. Now, why would you be liable? The Rambam is assuming that you walked out carrying the ring. Nobody carries rings. You wear them on your finger. Excuse me. Says the Rambam, why are they liable? If you carried out the ring that you don't usually wear, so then it's not usual for you. You shouldn't be liable. You took it out in a way that you don't usually take it out. A man only takes out on his fingers rings that are fitting for him, women with rings that are fitting for them. So if they took the other ring out, even though it's considered to be a load, but you shouldn't be liable because it's not a usual thing for you. It says that Rambam, it's not true. Sometimes an important person that had a signet ring, he would give his wife the ring for a few hours or a few moments to hide it at home for him. And while she takes it home, she puts it on her finger. V'chen ha'isha notenet habata leba'ala l'takna itzal ha'oman. The opposite also happens. The woman will give her husband her ring to fix it by the artisan. He's going to put it on his finger when he brings it to the store of the craftsman. So it turns out that in a way, they did carry it in the normal way, and therefore they're going to be liable. It's funny, it just happened to me on Friday. My sister dropped off her ring at my house 2 weeks ago. She forgot it there, and I brought it back to her on Friday before Shabbat, and I actually put it on my finger. So I had a case, and I was wearing a woman's ring just for a minute, just because I didn't want to lose it. So you see that Rambam over here, how he says that a man will end up sometimes for a moment wearing a woman's ring. The truth is, says the Rambam, on Shabbos, a woman should not wear a ring that has no signet, even though it is considered to be her jewelry. It's a decree. The rabbis were worried she may take it off or take it out to the public domain to show it to her friends, like women always do. Women are very socially motivated, we know that. So she might want to show her friends her beautiful jewelry. So if you let her go out to the street wearing her ring, who knows, she'll take it off, show it around to her friends, and therefore we tell her not to. We're going to see a lot of the halachot in this chapter revolve around that. Worries that a woman is going to take off jewelry to show to her friends. The sages, though, also said that if you have an important woman who doesn't usually take off her jewelry, it's okay. And today the commentaries say most women are considered to be important, dignified. They don't just take off their stuff in the middle of the street. So most of these decrees don't apply today. That's why today women wear rings, no problem. Going to shul, it's not a worry. If a woman did go out with the ring, she's exempt. But a man who usually wears his signet ring could go out with that on Shabbos because it's decorative, it's jewelry, and men don't take off the jewelry to show their friends typically. Nevertheless, says the Rambam, today the custom is nobody wears rings on Shabbos at all for fear of the worry of carrying. Now we're going to talk about needles. There are some needles that are called machat nekuva, one with an eye at the edge. Other needles are just plain. They don't have an eye. It says the Rambam, Ishashi yatz'a b'machat nekuva chayevet. If a woman goes out carrying a needle with an eye, she's liable. V'ha'ish patur, but a man is exempt. He doesn't usually carry around these needles. But if a man walks out with a needle that has no eye, he would usually use such things. Chayav is liable. V'ha'isha p'tura, and a woman is not liable. Because you would wear it as jewelry sometimes. It's only rabbinically prohibited for fear of a decree she might show it to her friends. Other than that, it's okay. Zeh HaKlal says that Rambam, here's the bottom line rule. If a person goes out carrying something which isn't a jewelry that belongs to him, and he's also not wearing it in a normal way, but he carried it in the same way that it would typically be carried by those who do use it, chayav is liable. So if a man goes out with a woman's ring, wearing it in the normal way, he's liable. If it was his jewelry but it was loose, and therefore it's possible that it will fall down, and you'll come to bring it and carry it in the public domain. Or any woman who goes out with jewelry which is normal to take off and show to your friends, in all the cases they're exempt. Exempt means it's rabbinically prohibited, but biblically we can't hold you liable, we can't give you a punishment. If it's jewelry, number one, and it's tight so it won't fall, and you don't take it off to show, so it has all three checks, but now it's initially permitted to go out with it. Therefore, it's ada. If you have a bracelet on the left there, that you put it on the arm, or bashok, or you have what's called today a garter, you put it around the thigh. Couldn't really find the modest picture, but you have a picture of a soldier, his gun is attached by a little belt around the waist, or around the thigh. Yotzin ba b'Shabbat. Those can be used on Shabbos because they're jewelry, they're tight, and you don't schlep off your bracelet to show it to your friends. But again, it has to be tight, stuck to the flesh, not slipping off. And anything similar applies, same rule to those similar things. Halacha Vav, now the Rambam goes into a couple of specific examples. A woman should not go out with woolen strands or linen strands, or leather straps, which are tied to her head. The commentaries explain women used to braid their hair in very fancy ways, and to hold the braid together, they would put inside these strands of wool or linen or leather. So you couldn't see it, it was covered, but it was in there. A woman should not go out with those. And the reason for this is quite interesting. Shema tachalotzota bishat tvila. A woman may have to go to mikveh on Friday night, when once a month women go to mikveh for their period, and it might come out to be Friday night. She'll be going out with her hair braided this way. V'ta'avira b'shut harabim. But because linen, these extra strands, are a chatzitza, later in the 10th book of the Rambam, we're going to learn that you cannot go into the water with anything interposing between your skin and the water. And many things are considered to be an interposition, an interruption. One of them is these loose strands. She would have to take them off before she goes to mikveh, and she'll end up carrying them in the public domain. Another thing she cannot carry, velo bitzitz, shemanachat bein eineha, a frontlet, top left there, a golden band that she would put on top of her eyes. It was apparently considered jewelry for women. Velo bilechayayim shel zahav sheyardin min hatzitz al lechayeha. I couldn't find an accurate picture of this, but you see those bangles on the bottom left? They would come out from those golden bands. Women used to wear these golden bands on their forehead, and coming out of them were these golden little strands. So if they're only attached to the band, but they're not sewn in, says the Rambam, if they're not sewn one to another, they can be detached, so she can't go out with them. Neither can she go out with a crown of gold on her head. Nor can they go out with the chains that young girls used to tie to their feet. You see the chains over there? So they would walk in very small steps. It was a worry women shouldn't take too large of a step, so they shouldn't lose their virginity in that way. So these are things that were enacted as part of the way girls used to dress, but on Shabbos you shouldn't go out with them. All of these are forbidden to go out on Shabbos. Why? For one reason. They can fall, and if they fall, you're going to carry them in your hand and you'll be carrying on Shabbos. A woman should not go out wearing a necklace, nor a nose ring, nor with a jar of perfume that used to be on her hand. Remember, this is before deodorant days, so body odor was a big factor, and they used to go around with these little perfume things hanging from their hands to reduce the smell of the body odor. You can't go out with that on Shabbos. Nor with this small pouch that they used to put in good oil over here. That's called a kovelet. On Shabbos you cannot wear any of these, and we'll see again the reason for this at the end of the halacha. Nor with a wig that she puts on her head, so it should look like she's wearing a lot of hair. If that's the purpose of the wig, to make you look more hairy, that's forbidden. Today, women wear wigs as a hair covering, that's okay. Nor with a kavul of wool that she puts around her face. A kavul, there's different interpretations for it. Over here they call it a woolen pad that goes around her face. But other commentaries understand it to mean like something like this. Oops. That's a kavul. Ignore the other hanging stuff. It's like a hair covering that was kind of tight fitted to the whole head. That's a kavul. She shouldn't go out with that. Nor should she go out with a tooth that you put in a place of a fallen tooth, like a crown, let's call it. Nor with a golden tooth which she uses to cover over a black or red tooth in her teeth. Shen shel kesef mutar. A silver tooth is allowed. It's not recognizable. The reason for the prohibition for all these things is Shema yiplu u'tivien biyada o tachalotz v'tara lechavroteha. Two worries: either they're going to fall and you're going to carry them in your hand, or these are things you would take off to show your friends, and also end up carrying them. Halacha chet. Kol she'asru chachamim latzet bo l'shut harabim. Whenever the sages forbade a woman or a man from going out wearing something to the public domain, asur lo latzet bo afilu bechatzer she'eina me'urevet. You also cannot go out with it into a courtyard that has no eruv. The next set of halachot are called hilchot eruvin. When you have a property that's jointly owned, like a yard, in order to carry there, all the properties have to make an eruv, declare their joint ownership. So if you have a courtyard where there's no eruv, so you can't really carry there, you can't go out wearing these stuff either. Chutz mikavul u'peyas shel seyar, except for the hair covering, or the woolen pad, or the wig. Shemutar latzet bahen lechatzer she'eina me'urevet. Over there, you're allowed to go out into those courtyards that have no eruv, kedesh l'tganal ba'ala, so a woman shouldn't look unattractive to her husband. If a woman goes out with a perfume pouch that has no perfume in it, just the pouch she's carrying, chayevet, she's actually liable because she's carrying something totally extra and it's forbidden. Halakha tet, yotz'a isha b'chutei se'ar, hakshurim la'orosha. Before we talked about linen strands, other material, wool, leather. But if it's actual human hair, or animal hair, we're going to see in a second, if it's hair tied to her head, she can go out with that. What was the reason a woman couldn't go out with wool or linen strands? Because they're called a chatzitza, they're called an interposition for mikvah, and she may take them off. But hair isn't considered an interposition because the water goes through the hair, and therefore, even if she has to go to the mikvah, she won't take them off. So that we should decree that she shouldn't go out with them to the public domain. Doesn't matter if it's human hair, if it was cut off from her own hair, from her friend's hair, or from an animal. Doesn't matter. However, an older woman shouldn't go out with the hair of a younger woman. Because that's a beautifier for her. Don't ask me why. She may take them off and say, hey, look what kind of a good, beautiful young hair I got for myself. And she'll end up carrying it. But a younger woman can go out wearing the hair of an older woman. Any woven hair covering, a woman can go out with them, no problem. Also today's wigs, the cap, many of them is woven, it's okay, no problem. Halakha yut, a woman can go out with strands on her neck. Kind of like a choker, think about it like a fabric choker, but loose strands, bunch of loose strands. Because unlike a choker, she does not choke herself with these strands, and they wouldn't be in interposition, so even if she go to mikvah, she wouldn't take them off. But if they were colored, that's forbidden. Perhaps she might show them to her friends. The choker.
Can go with that to a mikveh?
No, not this one. This is very tight fitting. But if it's just the strands, then technically, yeah. Today in the women's mikvahs, they take everything off, so they're very careful. But technically, yeah. Technically, it's okay. It's not considered a chatzitza. A woman can go out with a different type of golden crown. It's called a diadem on her head. That's allowed. Because only important women wear that, and important women don't take off their jewelry. Again, as I mentioned before, the commentaries say today all women are called important, and therefore most of the jewelry is permitted on Shabbos. If she's wearing that golden band I showed you before, and the bangles, if they're tied to her hairnet, that's okay, so they shouldn't fall down. Anything similar also applies. A woman can go out with like an earplug in her ear. Not provided that it's attached to her ear in some way. She can also go out with a padding in her sandal. So as long as it's tied to her sandal, so make her walk more comfortable, it's okay. A woman can go with a padding that she put for her menstrual period to stop the blood. That is allowed even if it's not attached, even if it has a handle, like today's tampons, for example. Because even if it would fall out, she'd never come to carry it. It's full of blood, it would be disgusting, you wouldn't want to use it. A woman can go out with any type of breath freshener, a peppercorn, a thing of salt, whatever she puts into her mouth to make the smell better. But she shouldn't put it in a new one on Shabbos. You can go out with one that you had on Friday, on Shabbos, that's no problem, but don't put in a new one on Shabbos. Women can go out with wood chips in their ears. They used to, in times of old, to keep the piercings open so the ear shouldn't close. Whenever they weren't wearing earrings, they'd put a little piece of wood through a little splinter, through the piercing. So you can go out with those on Shabbos, no problem. You can go out with the re'alot on their necks or on their clothing. Re'alot is also a little debate what it is. Some say it means this, over here on the right side, like a veil covered over all their heads. Here they translate it as a bell, type of bell. Uvirdid ha-paruf, and with a fastened cloak. That's on the left over there. You have a cloak, it's kind of loose, and you put it over a little needle or something, and it's fastened, so it's not really tightly fastened, but that's allowed on Shabbos. Uporefet batchila b'Shabbat al ha'even ma'ala egos. She can even use a stone or a walnut to fasten her cloak, initially on Shabbos, v'yotzah, and go out that way. However, v'lo tarim v'tifrof al ha'egoz kadei lehotzer livna katan. But don't do a trick like where you see your son needs to have a walnut, so you use your walnut to fasten your cloak, you carry it, and then boom, you bring your son the walnut. That trick is not allowed. V'chein lo tifrof al hamatbea lechatchila. She also shouldn't use a coin to fasten her cloak, because it's forbidden to carry coins on Shabbos, they're muktzah. V'im parfa, but if she did, since it became part of her clothing, yotz'abo, she can carry it, it's no problem. Yud Gimel, Yotzei Adam, B'kesam shebishinav v'shebesandalo shedrabim. A man can go out with a wood chip in his teeth, like a toothpick, or in his sandal, if it was there to like fasten something down on the leather straps to the sandal. To the public domain, it's allowed. V'im nafal, but if it falls out of your mouth, out of your sandal, lo yachzir, you cannot put it back. A person can go out with a wadding or a sponge on a wound, provided you don't tie a cord or a string around them. Because in that case, you care about the cord, you care about the string, and they don't help the wound. Only the sponge helps the wound. So you're carrying something extra, and that's not allowed. You can also go out with a garlic peel or an onion peel on a wound. Apparently that was medicinal. And also like a little, like a bandage tied to a wound. You can even tie and untie the bandage on Shabbos. All kinds of compresses, dressing, mixtures, ointments that you put onto wounds is all okay. Interestingly, here the Rambam, although he himself in the laws of idol worship told us that we don't really care about omens and superstitions, but he does talk about these superstitious medicinal methods that used to be used. Selash al hatzinit was when you had a foot sore, you would tie a certain coin to your foot on the right there, and it was supposed to be a helpful antidote to this sickness. So on Shabbos, you can go out with that. Uve beitzat hachargol, one of the kosher locusts in the Torah is called chargol. And the egg of this chargol was meant to be helpful. You hang it on your ear. See on the top over there? And they say over here that it was a cure for weak thighs. The Rambam writes in the commentator, for weak thighs. If thighs were weak, you wear a locust's egg and you're good. Uveshen hashual, a fox's tooth. The Gemara says a fox's tooth had two uses. If you pulled it from a fox while it was alive, it was a cure for insomnia, help you fall asleep. If you pulled the tooth from the fox after it died, it would help you to fall asleep.
Again?
Sorry. Insomnia and being hyper.
Okay. Now again.
Yeah. One for insomnia, one for hyperactivity. Okay. From a dead fox, from a live fox.
These don't go against all of this black magic.
Right. The commentaries ask a big question over here, like how the Rambam even gives importance. In laws of idol worship, he says none of these things have importance, and here he's getting on to it. There's different answers, but the point is that we're going through the list. Uve masmer hatzaluv, a nail from somebody that was hung. Take a nail out of a gallows, and you hang it on your neck. The Rambam over here writes. Some say you would put it onto the wound, but the Rambam in the commentary to the Mishnah says you would hang it on your neck like a little pendant, and it was a cure for like a high fever. Whatever you hang on your body for healing is allowed on Shabbos. But again, the doctors have to give it medicinal power. They say it's helpful, not just you heard from your bubba or something like that, then it's okay. Women in the olden times were very fearful of miscarriages, and there was what's called a stone. Tikuma means standing up. If a woman wore this stone, it was supposed to help her pregnancy go easy and well. Sometimes they wouldn't use the stone, sometimes they would weigh the stone and have her carry like a weight of gold equal to that weight. So a woman can go out with this Even Tikuma, this stone of health, and the weight equal to the stone of health.
How did she carry it?
On her neck, like a necklace, yeah. Which you weighed and measured for healing. Not only a pregnant woman can wear it, other women can also wear it as a preventative measure. So maybe she'll become pregnant, and we don't want her to miscarry, so she wears this stone. You can also go out with a proven amulet, an amulet that has some record of efficacy. What's called an expert amulet? Either the amulet itself has a 3-time presumption of working. It cured 3 people, or the person who made it already healed 3 people with other amulets. But if you went out with an amulet that has no efficacy, patur, then you're exempt. We can't hold you liable because you're wearing it as a necklace, but you're still rabbinically forbidden. Tefillin, even if on Shabbos you're not supposed to wear tefillin, but if you did go out with it to the street, you're exempt. A person who one foot has a wound on it, you can go out with the other foot wearing just one sandal. But if you don't have a wound on one of your feet, you can't go out wearing just one sandal. Because probably going to take it off. A child shouldn't go out wearing the shoe of an adult, but he can go out wearing the clothing of an adult. Others say it means not a child and an adult, but a small person and a big person. Like a midget shouldn't go out wearing the shoe of a giant guy. A woman should not go out with a loose shoe or with a new shoe, which she didn't wear even for a moment during the day. An amputee cannot go out with his prosthetic. It used to be detached, so that was not allowed on Shabbos. Today they have different prosthetics that are attached, those are allowed. But if it was detached, you can't go out with it. An katmin shel etz. An katmin is a very unclear word. Even the Talmud gives like 3 Aramaic definitions, and the commentaries of it what it is. The Rambam writes in the Mishnah commentary that an katmin means a wooden shoe.
Wooden
Shoe. A shoe made out of wood. That you don't go out with them on Shabbos because they're not usually worn. But if you did go out, it's exempt. Others say an katmin is like a mask, a costume, put on the mask to scare people with. But the Rambam says it's a wooden shoe. Halakha tet zayin. Yotzin bepukriyon ubitzipa sheberashei ba'alei chatatim. A man can go out with different types of wigs, tufts or wigs. Yeah, but the Rambam says it has to be for people that had sores on their head. They had sores on their head, so they would wear, like a toupee, but only for that purpose, to cover the sores. Matai, when do we allow this?
Even if you have no sores on Shabbos, you can or cannot wear.
Cannot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you have sores, you can wear.
Now men,
Okay, so today they say that it's the tighter fitting wig, so they're different. But this is the Rambam's times.
What about like these artificial hair implants?
Also, implants is okay. Matai, when do we say this? Bisman shetzva'an b'shemen ukrachan. If he dyed them with oil and he wrapped them around nicely. Or he at least test ran them. He wore them for an hour or a moment during the day. But if it's a new toupee, you're trying out for the first time on Shabbos, you never did anything to them, or wore them before Shabbos, and you can't go out with them because we're worried you're going to take it off, it's not going to be comfortable, and you won't use it. Halakha Yud Zayin. Yotzin, a person can wear things that are not usually used as clothing. Besak aveh, thick sackcloth. Uviri'ah, like a curtain. Uvesagos aveh. Some say it means a thick woolen cloak. Uvachamila, or a coarse wrap. Mipnei agshamim, if they're being used as a shield for rain. Even though you don't usually wear them, but they're kind of like a poncho, in which you would wear them to protect yourself from the elements. Avalo b'teva, v'lo b'kupa, v'lo b'machzel. But you can't go out wearing a box, or a chest, or a mat over your head, mipnei agshamim, for the rain. That's not okay, because that's not usually worn at all. Hakar v'hakeset, what about using a blanket or a pillow for a cover? Im hayurakin v'lakin kamo abgadin, if they were soft and thin, like clothing, mutar lo hotzian munachin al rosho b'shabbat derech malbush. No problem, go out with them on your head, as long as they're being kind of worn, as you would wear a head covering. V'ima yukashim, but if they were rough and tough, harehin kemasoi v'asuri, and they're like loads, and it's forbidden to carry them. Halacha yudchet yotzin bezugin arugin bivgadim. We can go out with bells that are woven onto clothes. V'yotzei ha'eved b'chotam shel titche b'tzavaro, and a servant can go out with his clay seal on his neck, like a dog tag. They used to have slave tags. Identify. So if it was clay, he can go out with it. Avalo b'chotam shel matecha, but not a metal one. Shema yipol v'yivienu, because he might fall. It might fall and he might bring it. Slaves, Jewish slaves, are obligated in mitzvahs. Most mitzvahs, like men. They have the same level as women, actually. So women are obligated in Shabbos, so are they. So they can't carry these things on Shabbos. Hamit atef b'talito. If somebody puts on his talis, v'kipla mikanu mikan biado al ktefo, and he folds it over with his hands or onto his shoulders on each side. Im nitkaven lekabetz knafav, kedei shelo yikaru or shelo yitlachlechu. If his main intention is to gather the corners, so they shouldn't rip or get dirty, you're in a muddy area, so you pick up your talis, asur. That's forbidden. It's like carrying. But if you picked it up, because that's fashionable, that's what people do, then mutar, it's allowed. Like today, when we wear a talis, that's what we do. We kind of fold it up onto our shoulders. So if you walk out with a talis into the street, like that, it's okay. But if you go out with a cloak or a talis, folded on your shoulder, not wearing it the regular way, chayav, you're liable. But you can go out with a cloth over your shoulder, even if it's not tied to you at all, no string is tied to your finger. But if the cloth doesn't cover your head and most of your body, then asur latzet bo, it's forbidden to go out. If all you had was like a short, a narrow head covering, think like a scarf kind of. So the Rambam says you shouldn't wear it over your head. Tie it as a belt under your shoulders, and it'll be like a belt, and you can go out with it. You can carry a talis that has loose strands. See a talis over there? On the side they have those like loose strands coming out of it. That's okay, even though it's not part of the garment. Even if they're very long and they don't beautify the talis, because these little strands coming out are considered nullified, secondary to the actual cloak. You don't actually care if they were there or not. So if they're there, they don't contribute to the load, and it's okay. Therefore, comes out an opposite law. If you go out with a talis and the tzitzis are not kosher, the strands aren't kosher, chayav, you're actually liable. Because the tzitzis strings are important. You do care about them. Your mind is on them. Till you fix the missing parts and make them proper tzitzis. So therefore, it's very important on Shabbos to check your tzitzis more than the rest of the week. Because if you're wearing tzitzit that are not kosher, they're actually considered carrying. But if the talis does have proper tzitzis on it, mutar latzet ba ben bayom ben balayla. Now you can go out with it whether by day or even by night, which isn't called the time for tzitzit, as we saw in the second book of the Rambam in the laws of tzitzit. Because when it's kosher tzitzis, we don't look at it as a load. We look at it as part of the beauty of the clothing and part of its accessories. Like a hem. Were the regular strings of tzitzis proper tzitzis considered to be a load, you'd be liable even on Shabbos day carrying them. If a positive commandment that doesn't have karet attached to it doesn't supersede Shabbos, Brit Milah, for example, carries karet, so you have to do it on Shabbos. But wearing tzitzis, that doesn't supersede the Shabbos. So if tzitzis would be problematic, you wouldn't be allowed to wear it on Shabbos. From the fact that you're allowed to, it tells us that the tzitzit are just considered an accessory to our clothing. Halacha chaf aleph. Lo yetzeh hachayat b'Shabbat b'machat hatchuva lo b'bigdo. A tailor should not go out on Shabbos wearing this like needle that they used to have in their cloak. V'lo nagar b'kesam shebe'ozno. A carpenter shouldn't go out with the wood chip in his ear. V'lo gardi b'ira shebe'ozno. The weaver shouldn't go out with the sample of woven cloth in his ear. The comber, the carder of flax, shouldn't go out with the string around his neck. The money changer should not go out with the coin on his neck. The dyer shouldn't go out with the sample on his ear, even though in all these cases, they wouldn't wear them to carry. They wore them as like a ID. You walked out with a little needle in your shoulder, everyone knew, oh, this is a tailor, or here's the money changer. So therefore, you shouldn't go out with them. But if you went out, you're exempt. Even though you went out by the way of your job, every tailor used to wear this stuff, every money changer used to wear this stuff. Nevertheless, you didn't carry it in the normal way. We don't carry needles in our clothing. You carry them in your hand. So if you did it, you're exempt. Halacha.
This is all on Shabbos, right?
All on Shabbos.
The other thing is that like, let's just say he comes home for Shabbos after work and forgets to take the needle out. So it's the fear that when Shabbos comes in and he gets ready for shul on Saturday morning, he's like, oh,
very good. So here, we're talking about on Shabbos itself. We're going to soon see about Friday afternoon. So we'll get there in a minute. Halacha chav bet. Hazav sheyatza bakis shelo. A zav is a man who is experiencing not normal discharges. So they used to go out with these little like pouches under the organ, kind of like a pad. Think about for women, so same idea, a little pouch. If a zav goes out with his pouch, chayav, he's liable. This is the only way that you carry out this pouch, hanging from the reproductive organ. So therefore, it's called carrying the normal way, and you're liable. Even though you're only carrying the pouch, not for what's coming out, just to keep your clothes clean. Nevertheless, the Rambam holds, anytime you do work, and you don't need the main reason that people will typically do this work, you're liable. Halacha Chav Gimel. Hamotzei tefillin b'Shabbat b'shut harabim. You find tefillin on Shabbos. You're walking down the road and you find a pair of tefillin. Yeah, Rabbi Yossi was talking yesterday about his stolen tefillin. His lost tefillin.
He said he found it on the freeway.
He found it on the highway.
On the side of the freeway?
Yeah.
Or it was in his car?
Huh? You find it on the highway. What do you do? Ketzad hu oseh. What should you do? Lovshan kedarkan. You should actually put them on Shabbos. Put the tefillin on. Maniach shayad biyado, shalosh birosho. The hand tefillin on your hand, head tefillin on your head. V'nichnas v'chotzan babayit. Go into the house, take them off in the house. V'chozer v'yotzei, and go back out. If there's more pairs, put those on. V'lovesh zug sheni v'chotzan ad shechnis et kulan. Put the second pair on, take them off till you bring them all in. V'im hayu harbei. If there's hundreds of pairs of tefillin sitting there in the pile, v'lo nishar min hayom kedei lachnisan derech mabush, and there isn't enough time to put them all on and off like clothing. Hareza machshich aleh, and you can wait till it gets dark. And bring them in on Motzei Shabbat. Typically, we don't allow you to wait next to something on Shabbos till Shabbos comes out. It's like consider doing your business dealings on Shabbos, but if it's for tefillin, it's okay. If it was in the days of decrees, government decrees, where you weren't allowed to be seen with tefillin, you're worried to stay and guard them till the evening. Maybe the goyim will see you. You can cover them, leave them there, go away, and later on come to retrieve them. If you were afraid to wait till dark near the tefillin, because robbers might come and get you, you can take them all, carry them, and take them in short steps of less than 4 amot each. Or you make a human wall. Pass from one person to another, until you reach the outermost courtyard in the city, and you drop them there. When are all of these laws said that you can carry tefillin in and out of your house? When the straps were attached to the boxes, and they were already tied with the special knot of tefillin, which you wouldn't do for anything else. Tefillin, and they're for sure tefillin. But if the straps weren't tied up, don't even pay any attention to them, they're not considered tefillin, and you leave them alone. You find the Torah scroll, chas v'shalom, on the road, middle of the public domain, on Shabbos. Sit there, guard it, wait till it gets dark, and carry it back in. Time of danger. Unfortunately, you have to leave it and go. If the rains were coming down and they're going to damage the Torah, wrap himself. Interesting. You should wrap yourself in the parchment of the Torah scroll. Cover the Torah scroll around you and then go in with it. That's the one time you're allowed to do that just to honor the Torah, so it shouldn't get damaged in the rain. You can wrap yourself with it and go inside.
Wrap yourself with the Torah scroll and put something over it.
Yeah. So you're kind of wearing the Torah and then you go inside.
Without carrying it,
instead of carrying it, exactly.
Really? Because they're like rolling it around yourself.
Yeah.
It's the same as carrying it, basically.
But it's more wearing than carrying, so yeah. Halacha Chavav. We spoke before about the tailor going out on Shabbos. Lo yetzeh hachayad b'machato biyado v'lo halavlar b'kul muso erev Shabbat samuch lachashicha. Even on Friday, when it's close to dark, a tailor should not go out carrying a needle in his hand, or a scribe carrying his feather. Shema yishkach v'yotzi, because you're going to forget and carry it on the Shabbos as well. And for this reason, v'chayav adav l'mashmesh b'bigdo erev Shabbatim chashicha. There's an obligation on a person to check his pockets, touch your clothes on Friday night as it gets dark. Shema yeyesham davar shachuach v'yetzei bo b'Shabbat, because you may have forgotten something, and carry it on Shabbos. Mutar latzet b'tfilin though, erev Shabbatim chashicha. But with tefillin, you're allowed to walk around even if it's just before Shabbos. Ho'il v'chayav adam l'mashmesh b'tfilav b'chol et. Anyways, you have to constantly touch your tefillin, never to lose awareness of them. Eino shochechan, you're not going to forget them. If you did, shachach v'yatzah be'em shetarabim, if you forgot and went out with your tefillin to the public domain, v'nizkar sheyesh lo tefillin b'rosho, and you remembered that you have tefillin on your head, don't take them off. Mechaser et rosho ad shemagia lebeito lebet hamidrash. Cover your head till you get to the house or to the shul, study hall, and then take them off in the shul or the study hall.